We'll get started. I want to say thank you to everybody for coming. This is the public involvement meeting for Highway 35 through Hudson and North Hudson. A few things. We've got a sign-in sheet at the back. Please sign in. That'll get you on our mailing list so we can get you future information. There's also a comment form and a project handout. The comment forms you can fill out tonight, or you can take them home and send them back to us. There's an address on the bottom. Otherwise, there is a comment form at the back. You can throw them in that box when you leave. But again, thank you for coming tonight. I think with that, we'll get started. We just got a short presentation, and then we will take questions, and then it'll be open house after that. We can walk around and look at displays. I'll start out by just giving you some introductions. I have with me tonight is Matt Pfeiffer. He's the project manager with the DOT. My name is Jeff Abramson. I'm a project manager with Ayers Associates. We're the engineering firm that's working on this project for the DOT. In the back of the room, I have Mark Peterson with me. He's one of our design engineers at Ayers Associates as well. And I got Jim Hansen in the back with CBS Squared, who's also assisting on the project. So, DOT Real Estate, wait, in the back, Heather. So a few things, I guess. I've got a few displays out here, and this project starts at Front Street, goes up across the bridge to Summers. So Front Street is on this aerial map is down on this end. It goes front to Vine. The next image is Vine to the bridge, and then the image in the back of the room is the bridge to Summers. So it kind of follows south to north as you go around the room here. What we want to do tonight is give you a little bit of a project overview, talk about the need of the project, what we're thinking of doing out here, how traffic is going to be handled, and then the schedule. So this is the first of 3 anticipated public involvement meetings. So you'll notice tonight there's not much done for design. We're kind of in the initial stages. We're data gathering. We want to present to you what we're thinking is going to happen on this project, what we're planning on, get your input. Next meeting be after the first of the year, early spring of 19. At that meeting, we'll have more engineering design done, more plans done, have some more specifics on actual impacts and what's happening out there. I realize you can't read this, but just overall, this project is broken into 3. And again, it matches front to Vine, it matches these maps. Front to Vine is the first project. Vine to the river is the second project, and the third project is North Hudson, the bridge to Summers. So as we go through these, I'll be maybe referring to the south project or the north project or the middle project, but that's kind of the way things are broken out as we go through this. So the need for the project. Number one thing is poor pavement condition. Pavement's got issues out here. It needs to be addressed. There's also deteriorated utilities, that being storm sewer. We know we've got some storm sewer issues throughout the project, some areas that it's undersized, some areas where there just isn't any. Also water and sanitary issues out here, old facilities. Safety, one of the things we're looking at doing throughout the project is improving the curb ramps. A lot of the curb ramps are not standard, so improving those pedestrian accommodations for curb ramps. We're looking at doing an improvement project at the intersection, which is this little map over here by the Dairy Queen at Cooley, or Buckeye and Cooley. That's called a Highway Safety Improvement Fund. They've got some safety money to do some improvement there. I'll get into that in a little bit. And then we're also looking at changing the vertical clearance underneath the railroad overpass. Right now it's signed for 13.9, and we want desirably we want 14.6. So it's not a lot, it's about 7 inches, so but lower the road a little bit through there. So that's what we're looking at doing. Proposed project, typical section. We're not planning on changing the typical section out here. So the typical section is the number of lanes and lane widths and shoulder widths. So right now, the bulk of the project is through the downtown area. It's 1 through lane with parking. Then once you get up to North Hudson, it's no parking. But we're not planning on changing that. So the bulk of the project falls into a couple different categories. The left half of this shows what a 36-foot, some of this is 36-foot face-to-face on the curb. So that consists of a 12-foot lane, a 4-foot shoulder, 2-foot gutter, and then your boulevard and sidewalk. If you're in an area that's got a 40-foot face-to-face, that's where the parking is. There's an extra couple feet. It's a 6-foot plus 2-foot gutter, gives you 8-foot parking. So all the way through here, it's either a 36 or a 40, except for down in the 4-lane section, that's a little different. But the bulk of the project is either a 36 face-to-face or a 40. And we're planning on maintaining that with an exception, and I'll get to that in one area. This is the area where there's the retaining walls south of the bridge at the railroad overpass. There's a lot of retaining walls through a stretch. In that area, the curb and gutter right now is, you've got curb and gutter, the sidewalk is right at the back of the curb and gutter, and then you have walls. That area is 40 foot wide underneath that overpass. In that area, we are looking at changing that and going to a 36 foot. So technically that is 40 foot right now. You could park underneath that railroad. Technically there's parking there. But we are going to narrow that up to a 36 due to the fact that when we lower that profile, that 7 inches, by gaining that extra 2 feet, we'll be able to slope that up and then leave the sidewalks and leave the walls in place. We're not planning on replacing those walls and sidewalk through there, other than there is some busted up sidewalk that'll get taken care of. But so that's kind of what we're looking at for the typicals. The projects themselves, the southern project is what we're calling a rehabilitation project. So this is all concrete pavement on the south. We're looking at fixing the joints. So there's some joint repair work, and then do a coarse grind off 1.25 inches of the concrete, and then overlay it with 2.5. So that would increase the height of the road by a little over 1 inch. But the intent on that south project from Front Street to Vine is a maintenance project. Curb and gutter is going to stay there. Curb and gutter that's out there today, the sidewalk that's out there today, that's going to stay, except for curb ramps. Those will get improved to the current standards for curb ramps. That is currently the intent, with the exception at the intersection over here at Cooley. One of the things we are looking at doing right now on 35 northbound and southbound, there's a small raised concrete island kind of in the middle of the traffic. Those are going to be removed, and the left turn lanes will be shifted so they're straight across from each other. It's a safety improvement. So when you're heading northbound, making a left turn lane, those southbound lefts will be straight across from you. Right now they're offset. So this will help realign that intersection. We're not widening the intersection. I mean, we're tight with the Dairy Queen, already, but it will help the traffic patterns there and getting those left turn lanes straight across from each other, improve safety. And then along with that, on the south side, east side, that right turn lane, we are going to extend the length of that right turn lane back. Right now it's a short little taper in the right turn lane, and it'll get extended back to that first driveway. So there is a little bit of what we would call reconstruction work in this area at that intersection, but overall it's a rehab project on the south. Yeah, so it's the course repair, joint repair, course grind overlay, coulee, and curb ramps. We talked about that. The northerly two projects, so from Vine Street to the bridge and then the bridge to Summers, are reconstruct projects. So that means we're going to reconstruct the pavement. So new pavement, new gravel underneath the pavement, new curb and gutter, but the intent is to leave the sidewalk. We are going to replace the curb ramps, improve the curb ramps everywhere. And again, I mentioned that typical section change underneath the railroad overpass back 2 blocks to River. It's River, then Division, then the railroad overpass. Those 2 blocks, we are looking at going from a 40-foot wide face-to-face to a 36. And that's mainly so we can get our vertical separation at the railroad we need. And then I'm going to talk about some bike and pedestrian issues as well in a minute here. But again, the intent is to leave the sidewalk except for at the curb ramps. Part of what this project also does, the northerly 2 projects have new storm sewer and new water and new sanitary underground going in. So the city and the village are working on plans for water and sanitary. The storm sewer is part of our roadway plans that we're developing. So there is below ground work going on. With the water and sanitary work, they'll be putting new trunk lines in out under the road and then stubbing out the services to the house or to the curb stops. That could potentially impact some curb and gutter at various locations, not curb and gutter, sidewalk at various locations. So there could be some spot sidewalk repairs that are done due to water and sanitary hookups. So the north projects, as I mentioned, new utilities under them, water, sanitary, storm, new curb and gutter, new curb ramps, adjusting the profile by about 7 inches under the railroad overpass, updating some traffic signals, just some new equipment at a couple of the intersections. We're not adding any new signals. We're just, the intent is to replace some of the equipment, so to new updated type traffic signals, and then the new pavement structure. At the bridge, technically the bridge is included in the 3rd project. The bridge is getting a polymer overlay on it, which is just like kind of like an epoxy that gets put on the bridge. It's more of a maintenance to help preserve the life of the deck, prevent salt issues on the concrete. So on newer bridges like that, we typically will, after a year or a couple of years, they'll put that on to help preserve the life. So it's a pretty minor thing on the bridge, but it is something that'll get done to the bridge as part of this project. So maintenance of traffic. That's also, you know what? I want to back up. I forgot to discuss one of the most important things out here. Trees. So new curb and gutter on the north 2 pieces. So new curb and gutter, there's that, you know, typically the 4 to 5 foot boulevard that's out here from the curb and gutter to the sidewalk. As I mentioned, sidewalks are staying in place, but the trees, most of the trees are going to be impacted. So that's a big impact out here. The intent, you know, to put new curb and gutter in, to rip the old curb and gutter out and then put new curb and gutter in, the machine takes a couple feet. So it's going to be hitting a lot of trees. There's a lot of trees that are actually grown over the curb. If you look at them, they're kind of out into the curb and gutter. But, so there are going to be tree impacts out here. I know that's always a big concern with property owners. The intent after the project, though, is to go in and replant trees in the boulevard. We haven't gotten to that point yet to know how many and what species or any of that type of stuff yet, but the intent is there are going to be tree impacts through this whole corridor, a lot of big mature tree impacts and removals. So when it's all said and done, the intent is to put some new trees in. So traffic. As I mentioned, the southern project from Front to Vine through the kind of the downtown business district, that intent of that is the rehab. So that is proposed to be done single lane bi-direction. So that means it's going to be done under traffic. So right now in the downtown area, there's parking and then 1 lane in each direction, or parking on both sides of the road with 1 lane in each direction. So what we would do is work on half the road and put the traffic on the other half. So that means parking is not going to be, there won't be parking on that when that's going on. So you're going to have 1 lane each direction on the current parking lane and current through lane, and then the other half will be under construction. The joint repair, the grind, the overlay. So that's the intent on the south project. That's kind of just a picture of what it would look like. Vehicles traveling in the current parking lane, the other direction to be on the current, actually the southbound lane, opposite direction, and then we'd work on the other half. So that's kind of the picture of what it would look like. And that's Mark Peterson right there, the guy in the back of the room, if anybody's wondering. North projects. The intent is to detour and have it closed to through traffic. Again, I mentioned there's a lot of underground work going on here, water, sewer, sanitary. We realize there's obviously a lot of businesses, a lot of residents that live here, so we have to provide you guys access. We know that. You got to be able to get to your property. But the intent is to take the through traffic and detour it. What we would also look at doing is doing some staging. We don't want to let the contractor open this whole thing up from beginning to end. We would limit them to certain segments, do a few blocks at a time, and then get that portion done, and then go on to the next piece. So it's not, it's too big of an impact to people to have the whole thing closed down at once. So at the bridge, since that's your only crossing, we'd look at trying to stage that bridge half at a time. So that polymer overlay can be done pretty easily half at a time. So they could work on the bridge, do half of it, and then we'd have one lane in each direction going across the bridge, and then just so there's always access across it. So there is obviously impacts with, people that live out here and businesses, that we need to, but we know we need to provide you access. So that'll be part of what we have to do in design, is to develop a system that's going to work, that's going to allow the contractor to do this work they need to do, and at the same time maintaining access to people. Schedule. So what we're looking at for a schedule, we're right here in September. This is a pretty aggressive schedule. There's not a lot of time when you start looking at the things that have to get done in the next. Final plans are due May of 2020. These plans go to the DOT, then the DOT will have it bid out to a contractor for construction in 2021. So it's 2.5 to 3 years away is what we're looking at from right now. We are anticipating that there could be some potential or a real estate acquisition. And that what we're looking at is pretty minor. Temporary easements is what we're looking at, and it's more specifically for when we do the curb ramps. Sometimes when we have to regrade the curb ramps, the grading could, or the shaping and grading that's needed for the curb ramp could go onto private property. Then we'd be required to get a temporary easement from the property owner. I don't think there's any real estate issues at Cooley, I don't think.
Up here.
Well, maybe in
Here.
those two corners, okay. Again, temporary easements potentially there. And then we're still looking at the intersection of Summers up on the north end about potential turn lane addition there. If that does happen, then there could be some potential real estate impact at Summers. But overall, on the whole corridor, we're thinking very minimal. And whatever there is, we're going to try to do as much as we can with temporary easements. So that just means that there'd be negotiation with the property owner to provide temporary access for the contractor to do the work, and then when it's done, everything reverts back to the property owner. So nothing. That's the intent, I guess, is what we're shooting for. So that's kind of a summary of what we're looking at out here. Again, this is the first of 3. We don't have engineering drawings yet. These are just aerial maps with some lines drawn on that kind of shows what we're looking at doing. But I guess with that, I'd like to open it up to the crowd for questions. And then afterwards, you can come up and we can talk one-on-one about your specific property if you want to. Yes, sir.
You mentioned in Northwest, you said sidewalks are there.
Correct.
Versus what you're doing down on the south side. Why are
There-
we not doing sidewalks in Northwest? Because
We're not doing maybe I misspoke, we're not doing sidewalk on any of the project anywhere, not just North Hudson, but the entire project, other than curb ramps. So when we put new curb ramps in, that's probably gonna require a joint or two, we'll have to go back on the sidewalk. So, and then wherever there's water and sanitary issues, for crossings, when those laterals come and hook up to people's houses, there could be potential to have to replace sections of sidewalk, but it is not the intent to replace the sidewalk on the whole corridor.
Are you doing any electrical lighting at all? Relighting?
Not in North Hudson.
Not in North Hudson.
North Hudson's gonna keep what they have currently on the utility poles, and the city is evaluating whether or not they wanna add lighting, either spot lighting or continuous lighting.
Yep. There's decorative lighting in the downtown area that's gonna stay. We're discussing the next piece, the middle section from Vine to the bridge. But I'm not sure. At the last I heard, that maybe was not gonna happen, so.
They're still evaluating.
They're still looking at it, but, yes, ma'am.
First one is, so the construction is anticipated to start spring of 2021.
Yep.
And I'm assuming you're going to do stages. So do you have like an estimated duration for each one of these three sections?
No, at this point, we haven't developed the timeline. It is gonna, I can tell you that just due to the amount of work here, it's gonna be a full construction season. We're gonna get it started as soon as we can in the spring, which means probably March, April, whenever the weather allows. And it's gonna take a full construction season. Just though, I can tell you from experience that water and sanitary and storm sewer work takes a long time to put in. And as I mentioned, there's water and sanitary on the north two projects, and even on, to be honest with you, even on the south project, they are looking at doing a little bit of sanitary work down by the treatment plant. So there is even a little bit of sanitary work down on that end, so, yes. Yes.
So you're familiar with different sections and you're familiar with projects you've done in the past. So what kind of tree loss are you anticipating based on these sections? Is it like 90% loss, 10% loss? I mean, can you make a guesstimate just based on your knowledge?
So the trees that we're talking about are between the sidewalk and the curb and gutter in that 4-foot boulevard. On the north two projects, I'm thinking it's all of them, 100%. I know, and there's some very beautiful, some big trees. There's a lot of big trees, but a lot of them are breaking up the existing sidewalk or the curb and gutter. They're just big.
Going into sanitary and water.
Yeah, people's, exactly. So I know it's always a big issue is trees and with property owners, and I realize that, but just in order to build it and to put new sidewalk, or new curb and gutter in, most of those are gonna be in the way for the curb and gutter machine.
On the north project, on the east side, when you get past the sidewalk.
Yeah, there's no sidewalk for the last couple blocks.
There's no sidewalk on that last
Correct.
couple blocks. Any of those trees, would they be impacted?
No, those won't.
None of them?
Well,
As long as they're behind the curb.
as long as they're, yeah, I was just gonna say, as long as they're not button up tight or within 2 feet of the, if they're within a couple feet of the curb, then they could, the existing curb. But we are not planning, there's a 2-block section, I believe it is. Is it 2 blocks?
Michelson up to Summers.
Yeah, there's no sidewalk on the east or right side as you're going north. And there's not gonna be, the village said,
What they call TAP funding, Transportation Alternative Program funding, to try to get funding to put that sidewalk in. The village is pursuing.
but as of right now, it's not part of this project.
Well, they are thinking about putting this.
Yes.
I don't know what the odds are
They're
there.
pursuing funding to see
Yeah.
if they can. Right now, they can't fund it themselves, so.
That was residential.
Yeah.
Is this project funded?
Oh, yeah, sorry, I should have mentioned that. Funding on this. This is funded, it's 80% federal funds, 20% state funds. So 80-20 federal and state for these 3 projects. The water and sanitary is funded by either Hudson or North Hudson. That's their facility. But the storm sewer and the road, the curb and gutter, the road work is DOT, state, and federal funds.
So no assessment.
No, I don't know about, I'm not sure, I shouldn't, As far as I know, no assessment for the curb and gutter and the road work. I don't know how the cities handle their water and sanitary. I'm guessing that's part of your water and sanitary rates, but
How much more would it cost to widen it 40 feet in North Hudson?
how much more would it cost?
A lot.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number. I know there was some discussions on it.
Parking, you're saying?
No, for your turn lane, when it backs up all the way down past the.
Put it like a, what we call like a twiddle or two-way left turn lane down the center, kind of? I don't know how much it would cost.
I got the stoplight, I got one.
Yeah,
It's widening there.
it would cost quite a bit, probably double the project cost just to do it. I mean, and that's not even like real estate impacts and other potential impacts, utilities, if there's any walls or anything else up there.
It
It
is,
could be pretty.
I can see the growth with the bridge in.
Yeah.
Coming through the one off,
Yeah.
I see more traffic. I don't
Yeah.
know, the numbers are there.
Well, we just did a count because of it. We did a new traffic study too to see what impact we were getting from the bridge, and it was minimal.
Yeah.
What we got, because we were looking at, do we need to have capacity somewhere? Do we need a left turn lane at a certain intersection that doesn't have one, or do we need to extend one? And our traffic recommended no changes to the current.
Yeah.
We have been 3 years. Yeah.
Hopefully it's a lot longer than that.
Hopefully, well,
Yeah, there's, what was it? 14, currently it was 14,000 vehicles a day on the south end, 12 to 13 on the middle. As you go north, it drops off. The highest traffic is on the south end.
Do you know what the changes over the last 10 years?
I don't have that with me. I know the projections, you know, when we design roads, we look at typically a 20-year projection. Projections, going from roughly 14 to 17,000 on the south end, middle project going 12,000 to 14,000, so a couple thousand vehicles are what's anticipated over a 20-year design life. Yes.
So there are no plans right now to put additional stoplights in like a Summer Street?
Summers,
No.
no.
Additional turn lane.
Maybe a turn lane at Summers, correct. And the couple intersections that we're looking at that have signals, we're going to be replacing the signals with just updated hardware, LED type lights.
Two questions again.
Yep.
Follow on at these first, because I go to Summers all the time. So, can this project do something about, because that intersection needs somebody to at least be able to push a button to warn the cars that there's a biker, because a lot of people walk across to that grocery store, and there's gonna be more traffic with the trip coming in too. So, does your project allow for any of the, the flashing pedestrian signs, so somebody could hit that would be really helpful at Summers there, for the flashing pedestrian.
If there's no signal, there's potential for flashing beacons,
Yep.
and that's locally funded and permitted to the state. So we would have to issue North Hudson a permit and approve the plan of what they want to put in, and they have to fund it.
Yeah,
Where
that's
there's
kind of
talk.
risky, I don't know. if
Yeah.
that needs-
I've heard
that's
there's
a little
talk.
risky.
Yeah.
Yep, I mean, you could potentially look at putting an underground there for a signal in the future, depending on what the projections show, but nothing right now is triggering to meet signal warrants.
Well, and again, keep in mind that there's an apartment complex going in over Hudson, and that quick trip is going in there, so there's gonna be a lot more traffic crossing, and I do see a lot of kids and
Okay.
bikes at that intersection, so that would be something
Okay.
I think to really take into consideration.
We've been talking with North Hudson quite a bit, especially with their planning, our planning and their planning into the project. So if things develop and change throughout the design life of the project, we can always run stuff in. So we're in contact with North Hudson all the time, so. we're aware of
Then, you
those.
mentioned when you were talking during your presentation that you're gonna kind of cover bikes and pedestrian access.
Oh, yeah. So part of what we do on all these projects, we have to look at how we can accommodate bikes and pedestrians. On the south, we've got the trail that parallels 35. And then right now, bikes, once you get to Cooley, or technically you're on 35 through the downtown area. Excuse me. What we're looking at doing and working with Hudson, looking at signing on-street bike down First behind us. So take the bikes off from Main, put them one block back, all the way on First. So we're all the way on First up to River. River is the last street that comes out. And that's why I mentioned earlier that we were going to look at changing. Right now, this is 40-foot wide underneath the railroad overpass back to here. We're looking at narrowing this up to a 36-foot underneath the railroad pass. As I mentioned, we need some of that room in order to get our vertical difference for giving us the separation that we need. But also, technically, a 40-foot wide curb and gutter section, so that's one lane in each direction and parking, does not accommodate bicycles. The 36-foot lane, or 36-foot face-to-face does accommodate bicycles because there's no parking. So you've got a 12-foot lane in the bike. So by doing what we're looking at or proposing to do, take the bikes off from downtown 35, put them on First, all the way up to River. Once we bring them back out onto 35 at River, that would be a 36-foot underneath the railroad overpass and get you across the bridge. And then it's 36 on North Hudson. So technically, the bikes would be accommodated through this area.
And that's what people do, even in the.
Yeah. Yep.
And if you're gonna do the sewer holes underneath the railroad bridge, then the second street stay close to the road, because right now, the sewer holes, culvert manholes, whatever they're.
Okay.
Dialysis,
Oh, okay. Yeah, hopefully when that's done, that'll be a little nicer with the new storm sewer and new water sanitary. Any other questions? You know, that was kind of our intent, was just to give you a brief overview of what's going on, let you know about the project, let you know we're planning on having another one beginning of 2019, probably in the March timeframe. At that time, we'll have better or more developed engineering drawings and plans, so we can actually see specific impacts at various homes. But if people have driveway issues or know of, I guess driveways have been the big thing. A lot of people that were at the first meeting talked about, you know, their driveway location or wanting to shift it a few feet one way or the other, or driveway widths was also a big one. But please, you know, if you have any comments or suggestions, please either tell us tonight or put it on the comment sheet and leave the comment form, and then we'll look at those and we can try to address things as best we can going through the design process here. Yes.
Will it be a 5-day work week for the crews, or how long? 9 to 5?
Yeah, I guess, you know, we,
Probably a little bit longer.
yeah, we haven't really talked about that yet, but typically,
Expect a check.
you know,
So,
yeah,
Normally, we're limited by city ordinance.
yeah,
If the city ordinance is stricter than ours, which is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., if ours is stricter, we enforce ours. If the city or village is stricter, we enforce theirs.
yeah.
If they say we don't want any night work, then we don't want night work.
But yeah, a typical DOT project, or would be 7 to 7, but,
So I would say there's potential for 6 days a week. Most contractors won't work 7. If they get behind towards fall, it'll be 7 days. It'll be sun up, sundown.
They will wrap it up within one construction season, probably. The whole thing.
They better.
I hope, we're gonna,
It's a
we're,
lot of work.
it is a lot of
It's
work.
to be done in 1 year. That's why we want them, we're looking at potentially staging the projects, especially for the southern portion, because if we're gonna have to eliminate parking there. So we're looking at, right now, if we maintain one lane up to Vine, and Vine's done. That's closed, only local traffic, they're gonna go somewhere else. So we might try to get them at Cooley at the latest, and leave Second Street closed all the way from Cooley up, you know, running down First Street. They're gonna have to park on side roads anyway. Then we can close that whole thing, tell them, get in there, get it done in a month, be done by May 1st. And then they can focus on, having one crew do that, hammer it out, then do the rest too. The underground, like you said, takes the longest. You can do 400 feet of storm sewer a day maybe, 10 structures, but that's one utility of 3.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work to be done. It's about mile and a half of reconstruction. It's a lot of work.
So we residents of North Hudson will be finding that out at a different time about our sewer and that business.
Cedar Corps is doing the plans for the village. They're the acting village engineer, and they're in the process of designing everything now. So I've been talking with Kevin Lloyd, and he's kind of taking the lead on that. So I haven't heard from him in a month or two since we met last time, but they were pretty far along with plans. So I would anticipate they'll reach out to the homeowners and find out whether or not your laterals are gonna get replaced or not, or what you want done, or maybe they scoped everything and said yours isn't in need, or it is. That'll all be coming from the city and the village.
I do know that, so that Cedar Corps is doing the water and sewer for North Hudson. A firm called SEH is doing the water and sewer for Hudson, and they are planning on holding a separate public meeting just to discuss the water and sanitary with the Hudson residents. So I don't know if North Hudson will do something similar. But I do know that SEH told me that they are planning on that for the Hudson residents. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You're gonna do the Hudson area and the North Hudson area all the same year?
Yep. This whole stretch, 1 year, 2021.
We only want to detour it once.
We don't want to,
That's
yeah.
the hope, is that we can just detour it once and close it, otherwise, it's like 2 years in a row.
Yeah, we don't want to do 2 years in a row with people. Just do it 1 year. We'll force the contractor with, they have to have multiple crews, they'll have multiple crews, but we got to get in and get it done.
Question. Many of the homes in North Hudson are older.
Yep.
Talking 1920 vintage homes.
Mhm.
Their laterals are rotted.
Okay.
Start from the house street.
Yep.
Okay, and I know what you guys are talking about, what, 10 feet in or so with your laterals?
Yeah, that, again, as Matt said, I would assume with the design that they're doing, they've probably, a lot of times they'll televise them or look at to see what kind of condition they're in. They may be going right up to people's houses to make the
That's
connection.
the question, because
Yeah.
it would be ridiculous for us to put good laterals from the street to
Yeah.
to the house, but it would be ridiculous for us to leave.
Yeah, and I'm-
But
yeah.
there are many
Yeah.
of the homes have rotted laterals, and for us to close our eyes and hold,
Yeah.
that ain't a good strategy,
Yeah.
period. And I hope it stands hearing this, because we gotta address that, because they're collapsing.
Yeah.
They are collapsing, and we've got a problem on our hands here. We need to have a plan, and it's not in the plan right now, correct?
I don't know that. As I mentioned, we're not doing the design of the water and sanitary. The city of North Hudson and Hudson are doing their own designs.
You know, all of us, if we're
Yeah.
on that street, we are,
Yep.
some of us have already replaced it.
Yeah.
I have myself, but,
Yep.
quite a few people have not.
And I'm not positive, but, when they put the laterals in, obviously, there's usually a curb stop somewhere around the sidewalk area. It may be the homeowner's responsibility from that into their house.
It's usually city or village policy or,
Yeah,
how they set it.
Yeah.
Some of them replace up to the house, but
Some
You know,
don't.
I guess what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say, and maybe I'm talking to Stan here, but we can't just close our eyes and hope to God.
Yep.
That's just not a plan. That ain't a plan, because they are
Yep.
old and they are rotten.
well, we can definitely pass that information on to them. And I think by the time we come to our next meeting, we will have plans on those, so we'll be able to,
It's gotta be noted.
Yep.
It really does.
Yep.
You guys cannot breeze by that.
Yep. Okay, yes, sir.
How long will it take for you guys to get the final elevation, so to speak, on the roads up on the north end side? My driveway's got a hump off of Sixth Street this high. Is that something that'll be taken care of? Is it gonna flatten out, or is it gonna stay the same? Got humps like this coming off
So between the curb and gutter and the sidewalk,
are you on the west side or east side?
the west side.
That should be getting out.
that should be. A lot of,
The road's very unique where, so.
It's
right side's
sloped.
pretty flat, and the
Left side's
side
good.
goes way down.
so we may be tipping it up a little bit.
We can't beat 2 and 2 right now. Right now it's 0 and 8. So
Percent,
we're
yeah.
looking at trying to find the best way to get in, get through, and get everybody's driveway within current standards.
Yeah.
That's the challenge of the project. to be
See,
honest.
with the challenge, yeah, with us keeping the sidewalks, we gotta start at the sidewalks and work our way in, and we're trying to get that best fit where it can maintain drainage on the roadway with a crown, but at the same time improve people's driveways, so that's kind of a,
Happy with anything lower than what I have.
the road would have to go higher though, yeah, for you, yeah,
I'm talking at home.
yeah. But the hump is between
It's right at the curb.
the curb or at the sidewalk?
No, no, no.
At the curb, okay. Okay. Yeah, I've been talking, actually, I've had discussions today on that already with some of the design engineers are working on this, trying to tweak this to get our best fit to try to improve that. Any other questions? Again, I just want to say thank you guys for coming, and this is meant to kind of give you guys a heads up and let you know what the project is, and take your comments, so please, if you do have comments, fill that out and either give it to us or mail it in, and email's fine too. And again, sign in, that way we'll make sure, if you didn't get a letter here, if you sign in, we'll make sure you're on our mailing list for the next time. And if you have questions, we're here, so we can go over one-on-one if you want. Look at your specific property and write down any questions you have. So again, thank you guys for coming.